All right, welcome to the Stampscapes lab. We're going to try a blue foil over blue foil reflection card. We usually don't do this type of thing because I'm usually going for something a little bit lighter down here that's going to be reflecting what's in this upper portion right here. But this blue foil here, I think, is reflective enough that it can give us a pretty decent reflection down here, albeit a darker one, than something like a silver, like this, all right? So I think in order to do this, we're going to have to use white impressions up top so that we'd have sufficient contrast for it to appear in such a dark reflective area, dark mirrored area. All right, so we're going to use some white brilliance on this. I don't know if I'm going to use the dark black brilliance on here for anything, but we're just going to try to, I don't know, get the gist of how things are appearing as we go along here. So, all right, so let's see here. I'm going to use this for my impressions, and I have the same ink right here, but just in a little bit of a lighter application of ink on my pad for my cotton ball application. So, okay, so I want to get a little bit more texture down here, or in this upper area, just so it's not just straight I don't know, whatever, a mono value of blue. Okay, so just for some variation, and what this is going to hopefully represent or look like is clouds in the sky, or just some, I don't know, kind of striations up there of moisture, which I guess is clouds, but it doesn't have to be kind of the kind of cumulus type. Just a little bit of variation like that, and hopefully that will kind of add to the overall textural range of the piece as a whole. Hello, Megan. How are you? All right, now down here, I'm going to stamp out my Lakeside Cove, which is generally my, I don't know, kind of go-to experiment stamp whenever I'm doing something kind of new. And I want there to be some lighting and a bit of opacity in the rocks of that stamp. But that being said, again, I'm going to be stamping it in reverse, so it's going to be stamped in white over the top of this. So we'll see how this works, if it does. Hello, Mark. Sam Hawkins, good to see you, Cindy, and hope you all had a nice day. I say day because I saw some of you yesterday. We're gonna try some of the, some of the things when I'm doing these lives. It's like, oh, we should try whatever, this or that. So I'm getting around to the, I don't know. I think when I was doing one of those foil cards, it occurred to me that this foil is, even though it's really dark, it could potentially be used as a reflective area. So we're going to test that out here. I mean, sometimes I forget what I'm kind of comes to mind, just in the spur of the moment during those lives. But this one right here is one that kind of, I've been wanting to test out. Okay, I think I'm going a little bit too light here because, again, the imagery is going to be stamped out in white as opposed to black. I think just black in that reflective area is just not going to show up. So we need to go a little bit, or a lot lighter. For these reflection cards, the things that are that really kind of are nice and visible in the lower area are the objects up top that have enough contrast against them. So let's, I don't know, let's see if this works here. Okay, I'm going to go for a few extra textures up here. And this is, again, this is water-based white pigment ink on top of a very non-porous surface. So kind of the process is, it's almost like you're kind of smearing something onto a piece of glass, okay, and going for these different types of textures like that. So sometimes something like that, you know, it's going to look really odd, but just if it was on its own, or if we did it in black on a white piece of paper. But for something like this, it can kind of lend itself to some sort of you know, semi I don't know, I use the word realistic very loosely here, but kind of a realistic depiction of you know, some cloud formations. Okay, so I want to add in a moon up here as well. And okay, so if I go too high with the moon, it's not going to read in the reflective area. So the closer we go, by the way, so this is the structure of this. Here's a quarter page card right here, just a card base. But I've already glued in another piece of the foil, same size as up top. And so that's going to look like that. So it, I don't know, surprisingly, that didn't lose too much of the value down here, did it? And, you know, that almost looks like the same lightness as down here, which is kind of surprising because this is already kind of dark, but it's reflecting into a dark area. So as far as the reflective aspect of it, it might work. But let's see. Okay, so anyways, on the moon, I think I better go a little bit low like this. Although I guess it would show up here, but you can see where the reflective area would be if I put a moon right there. It would be almost going off the bottom of this page right here when we're observing it in, you know, like a 45-degree angle right here. So I think right underneath that right there might be good. Okay. All right, so I don't know. I wasn't really planning that out very well, but, or I didn't plan it out really well, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. Just as long as you're not placing a moon somewhere that you're going to be stamping over with your main image, again, which is the Lakeside Cove, wherever that went. I don't know. I'll get it here in a second. It should be right here on my desk. I thought I just used it. Oh, here we go. So it's right here. And this is going to be stamped kind of low right down here. So I guess that'll work right there. Let me go over a little bit more though. Okay. So let's add this in. I'm going to go kind of light with it again because it'll just show up a little bit easier or better in that lower area. And these reflection cards, for me, it's kind of all about that reflective area in terms of my attention. I tend to look in that lower section mostly, which is a little bit different from, or a lot different if you're working just on a, you know, a piece of paper, you know, that doesn't have that type of component in it. All right, so we have that there. It's a moon. All right, so we need to manipulate or alter that cloud around it too a little bit if that's going to be our source of light like that. Let's go a little bit lighter around that light source, that moonlight. And let's add a little bit more tone right around in here now that we have our, you know, kind of our lighting, whatever scheme kind of established with a light source in here. Okay, so a little bit more like right around here. Okay. Everything that we've already laid down here too, if we don't want it, we can just wipe it right off. Or if you want to alter it, if you put a little bit too much somewhere, you can just take a clean cotton ball and just wipe it right off. This ink does not dry on here real fast, so that you have time to go in and alter it and tweak it. Even if this ink dries and there's something you don't like about it, you can add more, you can erase, basically. And it will work with you. All right, so there's a little bit of that kind of lower section glow on those clouds. And then I have this other kind of like haze right over here. And maybe I can bottom light that a little bit. I'm just going a little bit thicker in it. The bottom side of that, whatever, make a shape in there. So I'm just kind of trying to make this cloud look a little bit more three-dimensional here by building up a little bit more tone like that. Okay, so it goes a little bit light, darker, light like that. Hello, Linda. Uh-oh. Linda, you turned your sound off. That you put that as your setting for any of my videos. On a subconscious level. You don't want to hear me kind of blabbing away. I don't know, yeah. Well, check on your computer too, or you can check on the video too if there's if the sound toggle is you know, all the way over or something. Or it might be like a psychological deafness, even though there's sound coming out. It's like, I don't want to hear any more of this. You know, I've heard that Kevin talk about the same thing, you know, 1,000 times. So okay, there we go, like that. All right, let's take a look and see what this looks like. See if there's any kind of like tweaks we should make. I almost think I could stamp an image in there in black over that. We're not gonna do that though. Let's just go with the white. God, did I go? I don't know if I went too light down there though. That's a little bit more white than I thought I would, you know, maybe would be ideal. Okay, let me remove some, you know, so I'll take my advice and I'll remove a little bit in here. And again, it's because I'm stamping white over this, so I don't want the background to be too white because, you know, I want some, you know, the contrast on the, you know, the tree forms and everything. Okay, so this is a bunch of black on here. Sorry about this. I need to clean this off. I should have done that before. I think there's a lot of hybrid ink on this. No, I don't clean my stamps off very often. If that any of you are thinking that. If I'm using black on this all the time, and as long as it's all water-based ink, I generally don't have to clean it, but, you know, if you're going from black to white, then, you know, you need to clean it off. Otherwise, you're going to really get a lot of that black ink into your white pad, so... Or if you're using something like a solvent ink, that's going to really build up a lot of kind of residual ink on the surface. which, I don't know, it doesn't really come into play too much, but if you build up too much, sometimes it starts resisting the ink as you ink it up, so that when you go to stamp it, it's like, oh, you know, that ink didn't adhere to the, or didn't apply to the rubber stamp, so, anyway. All right, that should do it. Bunch of crumbs all over here. Okay, so let's give this a try here, and let's see. This has been working out pretty decently, knock on wood, on stamping on this blue foil and getting some pretty decent imagery, impressions out of it. But I'm always kind of, a little bit, kind of, questioning, even with some decent results so far. I'm never quite sure if I'm going to be able to stamp this wet ink over this ink that's just floating on the surface and it's still wet too. Sometimes I'm thinking I'm going to stamp it down here and I'm going to lift off the stamp and not very much of this ink is going to transfer. Or in the worst case scenario, I'm kind of always kind of wondering if, especially if I don't ink this one up enough, if I'm going to be lifting off that ink as opposed to transferring this ink. But I don't know, so far everything's worked out okay. In terms of, stamping on this type of surface here. You can't expect kind of equal, whatever, detailed impressions as stamping with ink on top of a absorbent piece of, like white cardstock or something. But I don't know. So far, so good. I'm talking about on previous scenes. I had plugged in headphone plugs. Listen to the video on the headphone, Linda, and then blast it. You can blast it as high as you want, when it's on headphones like that. You won't be bothering anyone in the house. Okay. Yeah, plug in the it's either headphones or crank it up on your stereo system along with the subwoofer to get those nice low ranges. All right, so letting this kind of transfer on here a little bit. Let me take a peek here. Oh, yeah. I don't know. What were you guys so worried about, See? That came out. I don't know. This blue foil, I don't know. It kind of surprises me sometime, or a lot of times. Like, getting that down like that sometimes and building it up, I mean, the moon's not like super opaque and solid. You can see it's a little bit patchy in there. Now, I mean, I can let that dry. And you can spray seal it, and you can go over it again. But I don't know. It could be like the craters on the moon, that little bit of texture, that could represent something like that. All right, so I'm going over this with this. Now this is like stamping on something like really wet, right? Over here, because I'm stamping over the top of a pretty thick impression. So let's hold that down a little bit longer, maybe. It's not pressing harder, okay? Sometimes if you press harder, you might get a less of an impression because all that ink is kind of like squeezing out underneath your stamp, and you're squeezing it out to the sides again because it's not absorbing into the surface at all. You got to think of it like almost like you're stamping on glass or something. So just, your normal impression pressure, but maybe just, kind of increase the impression time a little bit. All right. Like this. I'm overlapping probably about you know, 1/4 inch into the previous impression. Image, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. It's not like any small thing, you know. There's plenty of leadway and tolerance, but just overlap enough, just so you don't have to. It's like you don't get a gap in between. In this case, the far shoreline, where you're gonna have to fill it in with something else. And if you have to fill it in with something else, it takes like a few seconds. But if you don't have to do it, even better. I'm talking about if there's like a gap where it's like, oh my God, I didn't, overlap enough or something like that. You can just throw in another tree in there in between them. Or you can dab on some white or something like that after they're dry and spray sealed, and that'll merge the two separate impressions, okay? All right, so we have that like that. There's my cleaning. Nah, I don't know. I'll have to clean that one a little bit better. All right, let's take a look and see how that looks right there. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Okay. I don't know. It looks darker now for some reason in that reflection area to me. Maybe because there's more contrast up here. We can see that right down below. It's kind of interesting though. Okay, so we need to, this lower portion in blue. Okay, here, this is what this would look like in silver. So kind of a more traditional silver mirrored. That's probably more effective like that. With the silver like that. I mean, it's a real mirroring of that top imagery like that. But again, I want to experiment with this a little bit more in terms of the look. So I'm going to stamp out some foreground imagery down here in white. And again, because that's going to look probably different than if I did it on top of that silver, more mirrored surface. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do too. I'm usually stamping these little tiny rocks in black in this upper area. So I want these to kind of be a little bit of a transition texture into that far shoreline. And plus it looks like they're kind of like floating on the water, or if this is ice, it could look like ice. Right. Okay, see that like that. I can go a little bit more looking at this. I was being a little bit conservative and I don't have very much down here. But in this instance, it looks like that's how much I would do if I was doing it in black on top of silver. But on this one, I think we can go quite a bit more here. Just because it's really dark, so I don't know, different visual rules might be applying here, like that. Okay. I need to stamp this really cool toned scenario right here because it feels like it's 85 in my room right here. Okay, let's clean off this Pines and Rocks. This is basically like nature set number 8 right here. All right. Oh, so we were talking about the glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper yesterday. This might be a kind of an interesting scenario for using the sticker paper. So just like cutting out a moon out of this glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper and using it as a moon, you know, just physically sticking it right on top of that foil like that. It might be, you know, pretty cool. Because something like that would really reflect down in the water, I think, really well. It might not match tonal wise, but there's different types of, I don't know if there's different color glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper, but if you look at those glow-in-the-dark powders that are out there these days, they come in all kinds of different shades. There's green, the typical greenish one that we think about when we think about glow-in-the-dark, but now there's like blue and pink. There's even the reds and oranges that are glow-in-the-dark. Okay. That is really on this one. I probably haven't cleaned this one off in, I don't know, might be a couple years. All right. Foreground imagery with our trees. If you have a stays on white pigment, you can use that. You can use that for really all the imagery, but if you want to do some of that blending of tone, like up there to make your cloud kind of formations, you'll want to go with the brilliance. All right, standard thing, hold down, good, decent pressure, and allow to transfer. Hopefully this image will give the same kind of detail as the top one, the Lakeside Cove Large. When I'm doing this, I feel like I'm massaging someone and working like a kink out. Okay. So I don't know. Yeah. I guess I'll figure it out with this foil. Like I said, I'm kind of I'm surprised. I don't know. Maybe it's more porous than I think it is. I'm just so used to stamping on the silver and gold foils that are I don't, maybe they're more coated than this one. This one sure seems coated to me though, and glossy. Okay, but I mean the imagery stamps out reasonably well for you know, a thick ink on top of that type of non-porous surface. So let me go for a real quick impression. All right. Maybe I'm just, you don't need, apparently you don't need to hold it down very long. But experiment, you know, just in case. The last thing you want to do is just, you know, stamp something down and you lift it up and it's like a vacuum and it's like lifted up all the ink, or, you know, all the ink has come up with the, you know, with the stamp. All right, let's go for a little bit of textural variation here and throw in a leafless pine into the mix. Like that, all right. That looks a little bit unbalanced to me. Let me throw another one down here. I'll just do a little peekaboo, you know, addition of one right over here. And let's take a look here. All right. I think that looks okay. I ideally I'd want a little bit more of a stronger reflection in there from that far shoreline. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but maybe the silver would be more effective. Again, it would be, the silver would be really strong. So if you want to go for something, I don't know. Oh, maybe this would have been cool if I would. Okay, if I didn't go so textural down here, I should have. I haven't done this for a while, but stamped like a word stamp down here. Because that word stamp in white against like a darker reflection like this, it would really stand out really nicely right in here. It would look like it's floating on the water. So usually I wouldn't do that otherwise, because if this was silver right here, the mirroring is just too strong. Where if you put something right in this area right here, it's not going to read because you have that white reflecting right down in there. I don't know. That blue one doesn't look too bad. It might be cool too if you had other colors of pigment ink, like doing these rocks in blue or something like that. Or these trees right here, you can do like some background trees in a little bit of a darker blue or a medium blue maybe. And then some of these trees, like maybe the leafless pine, you do in white, so you can have blues and whites in here, which might be cool as well. Okay, so let's finish this off. I think I was doing this one, I thought, I think it's going to require, or not require, but I think it'd be probably good to stamp in some sort of word stamp with this piece, because it's going to look rather minimal. So I'm just going to stamp this moonlight right up here in the upper corner. If you haven't stamped on, or someone's watching this, and hasn't seen me or heard me talking about foils, is that this Brilliance ink right here is going to dry on this cardstock, but it might take it might take 2 or 3 days. Depending on how wet your pads are. Like this right here, it's a really thin application, so that's going to dry probably overnight for me. But these thicker impressions on here, they might take a couple days. You can heat set it too and kind of expedite it, but I don't like heat setting on these foils too much, because the foils, even more than just standard cardstock, would have a tendency of bowing a lot. So I mean, you can counter bow it and get it flat again, but it's just kind of always better just to, if you can, let things air dry so it doesn't affect the media and kind of the pulp and structure of the paper as much. All right, forgive my head here. These word stamps. This is where I always kind of skew my impressions because they're so small. All right, so we have moonlight like that. Oh, let's go for a little bit of extra texture too. I mean, this card doesn't take too long to do in general, so a couple of little extra whatever textural additions could be fun to do. Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, opaque white watercolor paint. All right, so I have those little textures like that in there. I might do some of that down here below too. I won't do too much because some of it will be reflecting down here anyway, but I don't know if you can see that. Okay, I don't think you can see that. It's just a really, really light application of that. All right, so when these dry, I will spray seal them with a Krylon workable fixative, and then everything will be locked down, and then I can adhere this piece onto the card. And then you can stamp some other type of thing out here. I don't know, I'd probably do some sort of quote stamp about, like a night sky or something like that. But anyway, there's the construction like that. Someone gets this type of card like this, and they open it up like that. I think that's pretty fun like that. I look at the clouds in the background. I think I would add a little bit more to it, maybe. This one seems a little bit isolated right here. Let me get a little bit more. I'm going to kind of unify these two clouds right here. Adding some of this wet pigment ink over the top of, if this has already started to dry, sometimes it's a little bit of a different feel too, because you might be applying wet into dry and you might be removing the dry version of it. So I don't know, just keep that in mind. The process sometimes can be a little bit different, or the touch, the application touch or feel can be a little bit different. If you're working with, a couple different consistencies, one is when you're blending it out when it's wet, and another one is when you're blending it or applying it when it's, one is dry and one's wet. Okay, I need to be really careful around that word stamp so I don't touch it because it's still wet. If you're going to smear out a tree or something like that, or a rock, it's not really any big deal, but word stamps have to be pretty clear. All right, so I think that's a little bit better like that. Let me see down here. Let's go in here a little bit. Where's my ink? It's drying like so fast here. All right, I think that looks decent. All right, so I've added quite a bit more than I thought I would, but because it's, I don't know, just, it's really dark in that lower section, so I can add more up top without it kind of obscuring anything that's going on down here. So anyway, here it is again, kind of what it would look like opening this type of thing up like that. And it's like a little illuminated piece like that, depending on the angle too. So embossing, you can emboss your images on this type of thing too in white. It'd probably be more opaque if you emboss on here. Just again, be careful about heat on this type of foil, because it could, if you have it in any spot for too long, it could delaminate. So maybe do a little bit of back of the piece embossing, back of the paper, go front, back, and not hold it for too long, which happens to me when I get impatient. It's like, okay, it's not going, I'm heating back and forth, heating from distance, because I don't want this to delaminate or peel. And it's like, hold it down there for too long. It's like, oh, you got this kind of delamination of the foil. Some of them don't have that lamination on it, but I'm convinced this has some sort of sealant on it for that blue color that's on there. So, all right. So you can put another little character in here too if you want something, and then do it in white probably. But color on color reflection card. I don't know if I've done that before. I've done silver on silver, but silver is really reflective. So the I don't know if I've done gold on gold before. I think I've thought about it, but on this one right here, I wouldn't have thought to do it on something that's so dark down below because it's not going to be super reflective because it's just so dark. But I don't know. I think it works okay. Could be used for some interesting type of thing. The imagery stands out really strongly on this, though. The white on top of this darker foil like that. And if it's in silver, too, you have this kind of this different dynamic. That silver would be reflecting right in here, but this other area out here, or the blue would be reflecting right down the center like that. It would go like this, and then you have these silver edges like that. In which case, I would kind of move these pine trees out a little bit more to cover up that reflected area down there like that. Okay, so this one I don't have to worry about it because this whole bottom section again is it's just blue, so it matches up with that top section. Hello, Caroline. Yeah, the blue on blue is good though, huh, Cynthia? I don't know, it has a different feel. The one, okay, so here's the thing for me. On this one, and again, I can jack up the contrast a little bit more after I spray seal this. I'd want that moon just to be a little bit lighter looking right there in that reflection. I think that would be effective. So right now, this white right here, it's only like a, oh, I'd say at most, at strongest, it's like a 60% kind of lightness. Um, I don't know, it would look like this right here. Okay, now see that right there? If I went really white, this is just a cutout moon right here, but see that white in that reflected area down there, like that? Here, I'll show you like this. Here, I don't want to touch the piece, but you can see how illuminated that white is down there. I don't know, maybe I can. I guess one of the things you could do, it wouldn't look as integrated, but if I just took like the hole punch, from this piece of paper right there, you can also just glue it up there. But again, it wouldn't integrate visually as much, but it would be stronger in that reflective area though. So, okay, if I can get that built up though to about like an 80%, white or more, that little moon would be illuminated a little bit more because that's the thing that would stand to be the coolest reflected area in the piece. So I'll try to do that. I'll get this dry, and then I'll spray seal the top, and then I'll just apply another couple layers of white in there. If I do it right now, and I put this piece of paper over this right here, this whole bottom portion right here is going to be picking up some of that white ink that's still wet in there. So, I can't do it right now. I'd lose the contrast in the trees, if I did that. I'd be sacrificing the strength of the tree silhouette and contrast. So anyway, all right. Yeah. So you got that blue foil, right, Linda? Yeah, give it a try. I don't know. It's been pretty fun, and I don't know, that blue for scenes. It's such a, it's a really good base, I think, and I like what's going on up here in that cloudy area, just with those really thin layers of white pigment ink on there. I think the most. I think there's all kinds of different possibilities with that. I don't know, kind of it's a real smeary type of application of that white in there, like that. I mean, not just in a reflection card, but I'm just saying just as is. I think that area up there kind of looks pretty cool with just that white ink on there. So, and it's really easy to do because it seems like anything that you do on there kind of comes out looking reasonably natural looking. I mean, this is like right here is just almost like a little smear of that white ink. And if you if you were to look at this piece right here in person, it's, you know, a lot, there's a lot of texture in here, and it almost looks fairly crudely applied, but, you know, I think on that foil, because it's so reflective, I think it just, you know, it doesn't really matter too much. It still looks, you know, pretty decent in terms of that that glow with the light being reflective off of it. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's got enough reflection where it's you don't have to have like a really good application kind of technique in your whatever your skill bag. I don't, you know. Is like I said before, I think I've said this before, I think on some of these pieces, it's almost like I feel like I'm working with like some incarnation of like an oil pastel or something like that, where, you know, you can add this down here and it's kind of oil-like almost. This is a water-based pigment ink, but just the thickness and kind of consistency, like you can go in here and just smear into it and remove certain things, which maybe, you know, would be a good idea to kind of smooth some of these out too. Just go in here and just kind of feather the edges a little bit, you know, but, you know, I'm not going to do that now, though. But you could, though, you know, if that really matters to you. All right, folks, so a reasonably, I don't know, easy type of process right here. It's just getting kind of the feel for it. If you haven't stamped on foils, I keep saying this because some people go into it and it's like, they're going for just a basic impression or something like that, and because it's not absorbent or something like that, and it might, you know, stamping it out, you know, they might move it a little bit, or, you know, you can use your positioners on it, but you know, just get kind of the feel for it too. And like I said, just if you buy it like a pack of foil, just, you know, have a separate piece and just use that as a little practice one, stamp on it, lift, you know, be sure, and when you lift, you know, it's going to be probably be sticking to it, so you don't want to stamp onto a piece of something. And then as you're lifting it off, you kind of like move it a little bit, and it smears the image. So I mean, it doesn't take a lot of practice or anything like that. You did like 2 or 3 impressions, and you'll kind of get the gist of it and the feel of it. But for me, I have to do that kind of every time if I don't do this for a while, because I kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say I lose the touch, but you just have to kind of get the feel of it. And, you know, if you've been stamping on absorbent papers or something like that, or, you know, I've been stamping on things like wood grain papers and things like that, other types of papers that are quite absorbent and with much thinner inks like that. So, yeah. And I say that, but I still, you know, skew an image here or there. So all you have to do is just wipe it off and you just re-stamp it again. So. All right, blabbing on here. Blue on blue. Blue, the coldest card for a hot summer night. All right, folks. Thanks for jumping in here. Hope you liked the card. And if you decide to try this out, I hope you have a good time with it. So drop me a note if you ever have any questions or run into any kind of issues or problems with it. And we'll get it all worked out in no time. Nice and cool tone scene, Caroline. See you, Megan.